Productions.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in there.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobsta, the father of disinformation.
Hi.
Before we get into today's esteemed guest, a little announcement. Sometime around the 30-minute mark, we're going to leave the pores, and we're going to go exclusively to our paying patrons over at patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. You can be one of those people.
People we like.
One of the elites, one of the 1%. You can be an elite. If you sign up for whatever tier you'd like, you'll gain access to the rest of this episode, the live chat, our backlog of content, a little discount code off of merchandise from toplobster.com, and also...
Unfortunately, there's an announcement to make that I didn't tell you.
What happened?
So at the $33 tier, we had to
couldn't make good on the telepathy?
We had to suspend the telepathy, so that's not
I was
happening.
trying really hard to reach these people. I was wondering why they weren't responding. In my mind, I mean.
Yeah, we did our best. It's really their fault. But anyway, go to toplobster.com and you can buy some. Oh, that's a nice surprise.
Oh, look at that. That's what's up there?
That's you could type that in the search bar, but I did not leave it up. But Toad Fundraiser shirt, why not?
Yeah,
Here we
they
go,
don't understand the shit I say on
toplobster.com.
Twitter. Dogman, Top Lobster's Dogman, Springfield Animal Control. There's so many bangers up there. Cultural Terrorist is one we don't highlight very often, and it is awesome. So is the Binaural Beatdown. Binaural Beatdown is a banger. We need to highlight that more often. Guys, Top just comes up with banger designs, and they're all waiting for you at toplobster.com. If you're a Patreon member, you can
All right, let's
get
bring
them
in
for
the
less.
let's bring in the guest. It's very rude.
The esteemed guest.
I'm watching him just struggle. In the back.
You know what
there.
that is right there? No, that's you being, you can't promote yourself. You don't like doing that.
Don't like
He gets
it.
uncomfortable when you got to promote his own shit.
We got Tyler Janke on the show.
Daddy Yanke, thank you very much. Joining us today is Daddy Yanke. Daddy, for the audience who may not be familiar.
Does he pay us?
He does. He's at the daddy tier.
Oh, right.
For the audience
way.
who may not be familiar with your work, and I don't mean that the work in family court, I mean the work on the internet, where can they find all of your work, and what do you do?
I am former Tower Gang podcast producer. That's why I was looking at all your media stuff. I'm gonna start taking over this show and just doing.
Go
stuff.
ahead, feel
No,
free.
No, all the drops are gone. All my favorites. Tyler Janke. I'm a family law attorney. Like I said, I used to produce with the Tower Gang and have my own show called LPR. And there you go. Yeah, follow me on Twitter. There you go, Tyler Janke on Twitter.
There you go.
You want to talk about somebody that's worse at plugging themselves than me?
That was bad. Yeah, that's another one. Just two people that don't like shameless promoting. Never been my problem.
I need to go to the Austin Picard School of Promotion. Is that what you're saying?
There's got to be a middle ground, right? A healthy middle ground somewhere in between these.
I don't
two
know.
things.
Just go find my shit. I do a show every Friday. It's kind of on legal stuff. I rant about the a bit sometimes and other people. I hate hypocrisy, and I hate, you know what it is? This actual episode that we're going to talk this stuff, this came to my attention because I hate it when people just put out in the ether legal projections and they're wrong, right? So then I'm like, I'm going to take a look at this, and I start looking at it, and anyway, this was one of those. We don't need to get into the killdozer. That's another one, but yeah.
Well, that's what you posted right before we started the show, is we're going to take down the with Tyler Janke. And so, by the way, Tyler is also the closest thing I know to legal advice. So anytime something happens, I'm like, yo, Top, can you reach out to Tyler and ask him?
Oh, dude, I was
am
calling
I within
Tyler.
my rights?
I was like, can the Misfit Patriot sue me?
Can he get away with this?
Yeah,
And
right.
I mean, Yeah.
To not just to dispel another rumor. No, Megan's List was not the reason Tower Gang broke up. It wasn't one of those.
What's Megan's List?
Yeah, I don't know what
Sexual
that is.
predators. Okay, that joke went.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, that brings me to my next point. Speaking of being,
Well, I had the most fantastic opportunity on Alex Stein's show to lie about why Tower Gang broke up, but I didn't.
Right.
I took the high road.
that actually completely escaped my like mind. It was like, oh, we could have made up some fantastic lie right here about why this is no.
Yeah, I was
longer
like,
a
Clint
thing.
was practicing witchcraft.
That's what we should have said. That's honestly what we should have said. That would have been hilarious. But before the show, you asked us, hey, maybe we should start with you guys saying what you understand about the topic that we're going to discuss today. And I can get that out of the way very rapidly, actually. I don't know a single thing about the topic that we're going to discuss today. Top told me about it, and he said, yeah, basically.
Literally right outside this door, he was like, what is Leo Frank? And I was like, well, and I gave him
It's
go
like
ahead.
basically weaponize legally against the blacks. That's what you told me.
In a way.
In a way, right?
I mean, wait, I'll say what I think I know. And then, Tyler, you could tell me why it's completely wrong. I know that there was something going on. It has some roots in or child abuse in a way. I think the girl was murdered.
Okay.
And then a black man was blamed. And
wrongfully blamed, or
I mean, listen,
yeah,
he probably did something.
that's what I'm getting. Yeah, what did he do? He did something, right?
But he didn't. I don't think he did this. And this is where we get the origination of the ADL. I don't know much about the ins and outs of the topic, but I do know every year, I think just recently last week, the ADL releases an article in celebration of Leo Frank or something like that, or trying to, clean out his name. There's blood libel involved.
I never thought of that. I had no idea what I thought that the ADL sprung forth as a golem that was summoned from the Talmud.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was an act. Like, I never really stopped and thought, what happened that gave legal precedent that allowed the ADL to exist? And so I guess that's what we're getting into today, Daddy Yanke.
Yeah. So, by the way, you're not wrong. It did spring forth from the depths of evil, so to speak. So, we're coming from. Okay, that's really good. So you guys are really. So I don't need to go into. There is. Let me just back up a tad bit here. I'll give you a quick synopsis of this issue, and then we can dive into some different parts. 1913, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. It's this pencil factory. This guy, Leo Frank, is born in Texas, moves to Brooklyn when he's 3 years old. So the
A
connection
pencil
for you
factory?
Yes. Knurling is a part of this. There's so many Tower Gang callbacks. Cole would be proud of this. A knurling machine this girl actually worked on. So now this Leo Frank and he moves down to Atlanta, Georgia, and he works at his uncle's pencil factory. Remember, it's 1913. And he is basically he runs it, okay? And this girl ends up getting murdered in the pencil factory, and he gets fingered for it. And they have a trial.
That's a weird
He
punishment.
gets convicted. I'm giving you just a top here, and then he gets fingered for it. He has a trial. He gets convicted, sentenced to death. 13 different appeals, even up to the Supreme Court. They're all denied.
I've heard of this.
Denied.
Please continue.
Yeah, and then the governor commutes his sentence, and then they have an A-team style break into the prison. They pull him out, and they him in 1950. Basically, just the other day, in August 17, I think, 1915. So, so 110 years ago, just around this time. So that's the overview of it, right? And then what happened afterwards is, and this is why it's important, which is the changing of the history of how everything came about, and to now say that he was put down because of anti-Semitic abuse, and that's where the ADL sprung out. He was the president at 29 years old. He was the president of this secret society called B'nai B'rith, and they are sprung out the ADL, and they were combined, those two, until 2009 when the ADL finally split off from it. So
wait, what year? There's a secret society.
Yes. Yes.
Many such cases.
In what year you said?
It started in 1848, and then this is 1913. He's the president of this society, and it's still out there. They're still in 2009. They split off from the ADL, but the ADL was in it's called B'nai B'rith. Okay. And, look, Freemasons, KKK, the story gets wrapped in here all together. But that is the overview, okay, of just the main topic of how it is.
What is
do you want me to go?
secret society about?
And also another question, 1913 just brings about the idea of the implementation of the Federal Reserve. I'm sure these things have nothing to do with each other.
Right. The implementation of the Federal Reserve. Wilson was voted in as president, started then. The KKK, the second wave of the KKK starts in 1915. This is where it's fascinating with all this. So the ADL this guy was a complete pervert. Okay. He was, this girl was 13 years old. He ends up murdering her. He was abusing her at the time. He gets caught. He ends up strangling her to death because he knocked her over and she hit her head. And so he strangles her to death, tries to dispose of her body with the help of this black guy.
But this is speculation.
Absolutely not.
Or you give him, okay, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the case, and he gets convicted. And what's happened from there is what's the fascinating part. Okay. Now the ADL, if they look back, they say, oh, he was only convicted because everyone was so anti-Semitic. Okay. Not only that, but then when it's the second wave of the KKK that comes and lynches him. And now you've got this girl and Leo Frank, it was so anti-Semitic that the KKK came about from this whole thing. That's how they try to project it.
Whoa. And did it come about because of this, in your opinion?
No. So what's the fascinating part is if you really look at in the South, Georgia in 1913, we'll back up a bit. You have the Civil War. Okay. Civil War is over, 1865, Reconstruction starts, and the first wave of the KKK gets started by Nathan Bedford Forrest out in Tennessee. That whole bit was, once again, against blacks, and it's to combat Reconstruction. They wanted to, because blacks now, if you're going to be able to be a citizen, you can vote, and we don't want that. So let's harass them. That was the whole idea. And the KKK, for the most part, very violent, but successful. Okay, they did bring law and order around, and it.
Sorry, thank you, Toad. Just a lot of.
Yeah, it did bring some law and order in the South, but there was a lot of violence, and it stopped around 1870 when Reconstruction was kind of done. Okay, but there were a lot of part of the KKK at this point. Okay, also there was you talk about, and this is what the ADL says. Oh, after this guy was in 1915. In the South, there was an exodus of them, especially out of Georgia. Well, that's not true. Matter of fact, the only time there was an exodus of Georgia was in 1740 when the colony at that point said slavery and alcohol are illegal. They said, well, then we're out of here.
I guess there's nothing for us to do here, so we might as well leave. Yeah.
They come back in 1749, and then matter of fact, Atlanta had one of the biggest populations. So they were not oppressed at this time. They were.
That's interesting. They came back in 1749. I wonder when alcohol and slave trade was allowed again.
I find it disturbing.
In 1749.
It's like when you know more and actual factual information. Because I always wonder, it's like, why the hell was Tyler the guy, the producer for such a horrible show?
You know what it was? It's like somebody in a lab. Right, and
he's just looking under the microscope like, this is crazy.
Like the rat cage. You know the experiment with the cocaine and the rats? Yeah. That's like Tyler conducting that, and Tower Gang is the rats and the cocaine.
Yeah, but no, he's got a pretty good view on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like my anti-Semitism was unfounded.
It was not backed by any actual information.
You just got lucky.
These are all jokes.
That's it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, jokes. No, but when I got it, I didn't know this. Like, this is the idea. Now you think of the KKK, and what your first thought is probably, you got white supremacists, right there, right? But the first wave, once again, there were many black involved in slavery, slave owners, first of all, and also in the KKK. Now, this first wave goes out. The second wave comes about, once again, right at this time period. However, I mean, I've got quote after quote of the B'nai B'rith, the secret society, and their acceptance of the KKK. So 1920 through like the 1940s, there was no problems. I mean, I could read you, who was involved, quote after quote. In Texas, they have a KKK parade in 1923. And the most prominent retailer, billionaire is there on stage with the KKK. So, 20-some thousand people in attendance. This just happens over and over and over. At the time, were very against the blacks. Okay, this was not a problem for them. So they were common, partners in this. Matter of fact, the guy that starts the second wave of the KKK, his name is William Simmons. He writes a book called Unmasked. And in there, he describes, whoa, we're not anti-Semitic. Matter of fact, I love their religion. I love the way they are, their prudence. And so he has no problems with them at all. What happens with the KKK, kind of this end of the second and into the third wave, is the KKK, one, was anti-black, very anti-Catholic, okay? Now they became anti-communist. Well, what do you have with and communism in the 1940s, 1950s? You have a lot of problems. Okay.
Are they looking at this situation like they're looking at sort of this Bolshevik kind of a scenario?
Yeah.
Are they aware of it?
Who's the KKK?
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that then starts to have the problems with the is actually during that time period, which is they're so anti-communist. Now, then they just are like, hey, if you're not Protestant and white, we're gonna work you over. So, but my point is, it's easy to push back and to make these accusations from the ADL back to that time period now, knowing what we know now, with not knowing all the context of the history of this, right? Oh, you were part of this. The point of all this is now that the ADL gets to say, look, the KKK, and everyone's like, oh shit, yeah, they don't like the, exactly. Well, that's what came out of this lynching guy. It was all anti-Semitic and da-da-da-da-da. And it's just not true. And that's why it's really important to in my opinion, to understand this. Matter of fact, black people in the South at this time, right? They weren't even allowed to give testimony. Jim Crow still around this time period. And this trial had a black guy, two black men, actually testify and the star witnesses for the state against Leo Frank. And that just was not happening. Matter of fact, this guy, Leonard Dinerstein, who wrote a book in the 1960s about this case. This is what he wrote about, because now the blame is that, well, this was so anti-Semitic. This is why this guy didn't get a fair trial. He didn't get a fair trial because it was all anti-Semitic. And this is what he wrote.
How did this fly over? It's crazy because you're saying at this junction in time, were like wildly against blacks still, but it's just like they were able to just sweep this into straight anti-Semitism right away.
What was whatever was unfolding in Germany? They looked. I guess they actually.
It wasn't unfolding yet. This is 1913.
Oh, 1913. Oh, well, yeah. I thought at this time they were still super cool.
Was just about ready to start in another year. But but let me just go back to this. So this guy writes this is the attitude that they're taking now. Anti-Semitism in Atlanta, quote, was evident in the widespread acceptance of Negro Jim Conley's testimony. So now you can this is where you have this definition of anti-Semitism. His definition at the time is they accepted the testimony. This is a guy in the 1960s, almost 1970s writing this. The fact that they accepted black testimony shows they were anti-Semitic. Now that's
meaning like they were so against that they were willing to do something unprecedented and have a black dude submit his own testimony.
It's crazy to when you get this kind of information in a time capsule. Like we talk about the Bible a lot, and when you read it, you're like, well, they're not talking to the people of today. This is just like not even 100 years ago. Well, it's a little over 100 years, and it's so different, the dynamic between races and culture and people, that like it's hard to understand.
Yeah. Well, so let me make sure I'm getting this straight. So this lady. Girl, and then they start to claim that any persecution of this dude is anti-Semitism, and people are like so dead set on persecuting this guy that they get this black dude's testimony involved, which is unprecedented, and which they just further claim is evidence of anti-Semitism. Is that right?
But this narrative, exactly what we're talking about, was not the narrative at the time. And so that's important as well. That was not, they considered this guy a white guy. The fact that he was only came up from him to show that he was such good character, because we're thought of as white, upstanding people in the South. Yeah. So let me actually break down the murder itself just a little bit. And by the way, if you have any questions, interrupt as always.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
We're
perfect. It's actually Confederate Memorial Day in the South. It's a Saturday. It's April 26th. And since it was a Memorial Day and the factory was closed, everyone typically got paid on Saturday to come there, but they should have come in on Friday because it was a holiday. So most people come in on Friday. This girl, Mary Fagan, once again, 13 years old, she sent her friend to get her pay because she had been laid off for a week. Their friend
crazy. I just like a wild thing. Be like,
She's
this little girl,
13.
this 13-year-old had been laid off, fell on hard times, and she was like, "Can you go get my check because I'm really going through it right now."
By the way, that is a great concept because that was a problem in the South at this point. Remember, Reconstruction happened. The cotton industry was getting wiped out because you don't have your slaves anymore. So the South is trying to figure out new things. People from the North come down and they start doing manufacturing, and you have this. Young girls were then being put in the factories to work. Okay, the economics in 1913 in Georgia, Atlanta weren't great. So you had a lot of, and matter of fact, you read these books and all the stuff from this time period, they basically said to have your daughter or anybody, a girl in the factories was basically to prostitute her out. She was going to get felt up, everything. And it wasn't a good situation. And a lot of the Southerners at that time, they started to think ill of kind of these industrialists that were coming in, exploiting their white girls in the factories. And so, yeah, you have a 13-year-old coming into work and, she's on her knurling machine, as you know.
And this is because,
you know what knurling is, right?
Knurling is a process that you put like wood through, right? It creates like these knobs.
You can do it with metal as well.
You can do it with metal. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the pencil and then the little, metal piece that goes on the top. That's...
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the reason that they're
completely different concept for someone like Cole, but that's another story.
Knurling is... I think I remember that episode.
Yeah.
So they're doing this because the men are going to war?
No.
Why are they doing this?
The Great Depression, like he said, the economy is completely on its head because slavery and what is it called? Not reconstitution.
Reconstruction.
Reconstruction has happened. So now there's just been a mix up of where everything goes.
That's interesting because I'm just looking at it like, have you ever been around like a 13-year-old girl? They're very like annoying and dainty and they're not very strong. But like a 13-year-old boy is like kind of like a hardy little character. Like you could put him to work in a factory. And, like I think my son is 10 and I go, you'd make a good factory worker.
Yeah, but
like you're kind of
tough,
strong.
baby.
Like you're a dense kid. Well, they weren't dense back then. I know that they were all malnourished and sending each other to go pick up their paychecks and shit. But, I just think it's interesting. It also reminds me of the Radium Girls. You ever see that? Radium Girls? I think it's called Radium Girls. It's basically a bunch of girls that work at a clock factory or a watch factory back in the day. Irradium Girl. Thank you.
Yeah,
and you ever watch that?
I know a little bit about it.
Dude, what a horrifying movie. Just a quick overview. It's like girls working in a watch factory. They're using radiated material to make the faces of the watch glow, and it was painted on with a paintbrush, and it was very normal to lick the paintbrush to create a fine tip on it in order to get into like the crevices of the watch. Long story short, they all get like really devastating forms of cancer and rot away and die. And then, yeah, because of their death, we don't do that anymore. So good on you, girls. All right, please continue.
Crazy. Okay, so she doesn't pick up her pay. This guy, and her friend had done this multiple times before, picked up the pay for her. And she's like, no, he's like, no, because this Leo Frank runs the payroll. He runs the whole thing. They come into him and he says, no, she's got to come in there herself. So Saturday comes. Now he's working on the Saturday.
Question. Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. But does she not pick up?
That's a good
That's
point.
a great point.
That's a great point.
No, that's a Sabbath. But does she not pick up her paycheck because is there any speculation that she is possibly kind of weirded out by the guy?
Their testimony later to someone testified in trial that she did not like him. He had come on to her several times, and so that was probably it. Now, she hadn't worked that week, So because there was metal, the metal hadn't been delivered, and so she wasn't able to work that week. That was probably another reason. She's like, I'm not going to go down to the factory. You just do it for me. You're already there. They're there. But yeah.
Okay.
Good point. So anyway, she comes in to the factory, gets her to get her pay. Now, there's a black guy. There's two black guys at this factory. There might be more, but there's two that we're going to talk about. One is, his name is Newt Lee. Okay. He's an illiterate black man, which you assumed all of them in the South at this point were. He's the night watchman. Okay. So he comes in at 4 to 6 and spends all night there circling the factory. Then there's this other guy, Jim Conley, and he is a sweeper, a janitor type of guy there. He comes in on Saturday. Now, he testifies, as we've talked about, that he and Leo Frank had a deal, and this happened quite often where he's like, hey, Leo's like, I'm going to have someone come and chat with me in my office. You lock the door. When I stamp my foot, you lock the door. When I whistle, you unlock the door. And then, that way no one could get in there.
It's like
a deal that they had.
Stuff, huh?
Right. So this happens. This girl comes, and this guy forgets to lock the door. He's kind of sleeping. He goes, then I hear 2 footsteps go down the thing. Then I hear a girl scream. Then this guy, Leo Frank, comes running back. Now, Leo comes to him, okay? This is how the testimony comes out. Leo comes to him and says, I made the advances on this girl. She rebuffed me. I hit her. I'm not like most men. Now, when they asked him, what does that mean? He goes, he was a small man. He looks kind of like Brad Palumbo, but like maybe 5 foot. Just throwing that out there.
So what? He's trying to like garner sympathy because of his visage. Like, hey, look,
I don't know.
Man, it's kinda...
the Jim Conley said he thought that meant he had walked in on the office and this guy was on his knees and a girl's legs were spread. So he's not sure what he meant by that. Point is, he gets this guy, Jim Conley, to help him, who wants him to dispose of there you go.
Oh, see? This is him? He do look like a bitch. He looks soft.
He does. He is.
Oh, man.
Interesting. Okay.
So just the implications here. This girl comes to get her friend's check, and this guy's making sexual advances on her.
No, this is her own check because he made her come in. Now he told this.
Right.
I think this was all planned. Okay, because he didn't want her to. He wanted her to come in on Saturday herself because he wanted to make advances to her. So he does. She dies, hits her head, and then he gets Jim Conley to help him, and they take him down to the basement where there's a furnace. He wants him to burn her down there. More takes place. Okay. And so that's how the whole thing goes. Now, the police come because the night watchman ends up coming around at the night and finds his dead body. He calls Leo Frank's house. Leo doesn't answer. He calls the cops. They come in there and they
never burn the body. Like
they didn't burn the body. And this is if you want to talk Jewish stereotypes, he's in the office talking to Jim and he's like, here's $200. $200 was about 2/3 of, I think this guy made $1 a day. Okay. So if you're making $1 a day, and you're offered $200. That's a lot of money. Okay,
that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. He gives him a wad of cash. Says, "Here's $200. We're gonna make this right. If you ever go to jail, I'm gonna, I'll get you a bond. I have a lot of rich friends. We're gonna make this right. But here's $200. I want you to go down and burn the body." And then Jim's like, "Hey, I don't know if I want to do that." So he's like, he takes the money back. He takes the money back. This is where they made the problem. He took the money back and he said, "I'll pay you when it's done." So if he would have given the money up front, it might have happened. So the body never got burned. Jim just like, "I'm out of here," and he goes and leaves, goes to the bar. Newt Lee finds this body. This is this night watchman finds this body and calls the cops. Cops do the right thing of arresting him immediately because he's a black guy. And
they're like, just get on the floor.
Yeah, right.
Knee on the neck.
Yeah. So they arrest him. I'm walking through a bunch of this real quick stuff, and then they call Leo Frank. He's just nervous as can be. He comes over the next morning, Sunday, and they said it's Mary Fagan. He goes, "I don't know who that is. Never heard of her." Testimony comes out later that he told people, "Oh, you're hot for Mary Fagan. You like her. So he knew who she was." There's all kinds of testimony that this is the case. So him denying it is just one more, brick in the wall. They suspect him and they try to have him talk to this Newt guy because they have kind of this slave owner mentality of bosses to black people at this time. They thought maybe he can get it out of her. But he was acting so strange that they started to think it was him. And eventually they arrest both of them. Now, Leo Frank and his team, he's got the most high-powered attorneys in Atlanta. His pencil company hires 2 detective agencies to go and figure this whole thing out. He at one point says, hey, you go check on my laundry to make sure that, I'm clean. So then they had the idea, we should go check this new Lee guy's out. And they go there and they find a shirt with blood, but it was so obviously planted in like a shirt he had not worn, and the blood was wiped on the inside, that they knew he was trying to be set up. All these things start to work. They actually arrest this guy, Jim Conley, a few days later because someone reported that he was wiping blood out of his shirt at the pencil factory, coming back to the scene of the crime. So they arrest him. He just sits in jail for 2 weeks and nothing happens. Okay. Jim Conley finally comes free and says, here's what happened. I was part of this thing. And the reason he does is because he starts to think that, and by the way, this 2 weeks that he's in jail, they don't really know what to do with him, but why not just put the black guy in jail? Leo Frank never points the finger at Jim Conley. Okay. He only points it at this Newt Lee guy. He had Jim write some notes, trying to say it's like the girl was right. And it was really odd. Some things he tried to pin the tail on him. But he never points the finger at Jim Conley, even though he knows he's in jail, because he knows that those two are tied together and that Jim could point him. So he keeps trying to point the finger at this Newt Lee guy, but he's obviously not guilty. Another guy comes in. They try to, so he's pointing the fingers at everybody but the actual other guy, the guy that was actually helped him do it, because he's trying to save his skin, right? And he's got to deal with him that he's going to, not turn him on either.
That's because he would be able to tell an accurate story of what happened there that would make sense.
Yeah,
right.
but he didn't pay him though.
And he didn't pay him. He paid him a little bit of money, but it wasn't the $200. Yeah.
And when this guy's, as he's sitting in jail, is he like singing it all? Is he like, dude, it wasn't me. It was
no. Then he overhears that, hey, he's trying to pin it on the black guy, and he's like, oh shit, that's me, but it wasn't. It was actually the Newt Lee guy. With that, he starts to talk to the cops. He's like, I can't sleep. I need to say some things. So he starts to tell the cops some stories, but he's not telling them everything. And they're like, your story doesn't make sense. And so he tells them a little bit more. And finally, about the third time, he tells them everything. And, when he testifies, 16 hours he testified, by the way. Wow. He said, they ask him, why didn't you tell the truth the first time? And he's like, well, I was still trying to save us both, but I didn't want it to be me. I was trying to get myself out of it. But, I didn't want to have Jim fry or Leo Frank fry for this, because I had still said that I was, trying to do him a solid. But at some point, it couldn't happen.
I was trying to help him cover up his crimes.
This almost feels like making a murderer. Like these people, you're dealing with somebody with a little bit of brain damage or very low IQ that doesn't understand the legal system or like the ramifications or accusations that are being thrown at them. Like,
he doesn't realize like the implications of being like, well, the reason I was not saying it is because I was also trying to, get the guy that you are pursuing out of trouble. Like,
they're going to put you to death.
Yeah.
Well,
they're gonna you.
Once again, everything, you always have to go back to your 1913 Atlanta South. There was almost 1,000 of black people that, during this time. It's like a few hundred. So this, as a matter of fact, the first day they go to trial in the newspaper, talks about the trial. And then under that, there's a story about a black guy that just got, and it's like, well, that happens. So my point is, the white people, as a matter of fact, during this time, they're like, oh, this Newt Lee guy, the night watchman, who had nothing to do with this, all he did was report it. There was newspaper articles that were saying, oh, we expect him to be at any day, because you just take into your own justice. This is how you do it. When you mess with our white girls, we just kill you. And Leo Frank, in his whole during the trial, they were so racist, it was unbelievable. But they said, this is a crime. This is a crime. Simply this is that type of crime, and it could only be the
crime it is.
And did they probably wrote that in the papers, right?
Oh yeah, what it is, guys. Another crime. Right. Let me ask you this. Son of Overbrook in the chat here says Candace Owens has just figured out that Leo Frank actually had 3 different names. I thought it was very interesting. What kind of man changes their name 3 times? Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't heard anything like that. I did see her talking about other people that changed their name, multiple times, but I haven't seen that here. And I've dug really pretty deep on it. Matter of fact, his uncle was a slave, Confederate slave owner. So, I mean, so he had good ties to the South. I don't think that there was any. I haven't seen that he changed his name, but that's a typical thing. It just seems like
it's a common. Yeah, it's typical, right? Yeah, so, listen. Before we go any further, though, we're at the 35-minute mark. If you want to hear any more about these specific variety of crimes, go on over to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Continue watching, engaging in the live chat, all the perks that come with that. Otherwise, goodbye to YouTube, Rumble, etc. We'll see you guys in about a week and a half. Actually, I think we're doing better than a week and a half. We've really been just crushing, man. Just pedal to the metal.
Doing great.
Just the labor has increased, and
we really need some pencil pushing either maybe 13-year-old girls or
if we had some 13-year-old girls to do some labor for us, I think that would be great. We don't need 13-year-old boys because it's not like muscle stuff. It's just Bobby Ballbags was trying to spell something before we got out of here. All right, we cut him off just in time. All right, so please continue, Tyler.
Okay, so I don't want to dig too much into the whole trial. I mean, it's all I'm trying to give you is that beyond a reasonable doubt, in my opinion, he was completely guilty. 2 quick things on the legal side.
Leo Frank, yeah.
Leo Frank, yeah. The coroner does an inquest first, and he can ask some people questions. Leo Frank gets in there, and Newt Lee and some others, and he decides that he should refer this on to a grand jury for Leo Frank and Newt Lee. Then the grand jury takes this on. 25 members of the grand jury, or 23, but 5 of them were prominent, and they all unanimously said, we're indicting him for murder.
Mm-hmm. So, really?
Yeah, the grand jury.
I didn't see that coming.
The black man or Leo Frank?
Just Leo Frank.
You think they're trying to save face for the people,
or maybe they're just actually. Look, I love how we have to go how are they being sneaky? There's got to be a way they're being sneaky. Maybe they were just being humans. Maybe they were being good dudes who are this story doesn't add up. You're a rapist.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And by the way, at the grand jury, this whole time. Jim Conley's in jail. He's not even thought of as a witness. So
they're just holding him.
Yeah. So his story hadn't come out yet, even for the inquest from the coroner or the grand jury. His info came out for the trial, which was even more significant. I mean, you think about it this. They just indicted for Leo Frank, not Newt Lee, out of the grand jury, but the fact that what's his name, Jim Conley, his story now gets to shoestring over. Those are the only 2 that it could be. He's literally admitting, I was part of this. Why would you bring yourself into this? In other words, it couldn't be anybody else. It had to be either Leo Frank, as he's saying, or it was him because he knew way too much about this the situation.
Right.
Oh, by the way, the girl's neck was choked with a rope so much that it was embedded into her neck.
Oh, jeez, dude.
Yeah, so she didn't die from the head injury. After she hit her head, then he's like, well, I got to finish this girl off.
That kind of trend, not the choking with the rope, but the leaving people in jail for long periods of time without, doing anything, that still happens. That's just a constant throughout American history is whoops, we're just going to hold on to you in this cage for some time.
It's they're forgotten about for a little while. And
when I went to jail, I stayed longer than I should have. And when I went to the judge, he was like, wait, how long have you been in here? And I was like, I've been in here for a week. And he's like, you should and he's shuffling his papers and he goes, okay, consider it time served. You're dismissed. And I was like, you weren't supposed to leave me in there that long, were you? They just kind of forget, I guess it happens, but man, so they're just keeping this guy in prison while they're not even suspicious of him.
Yeah, matter of fact, Newt Lee, the night watchman, he testified. He's one of the first people to testify. He was still being held in jail. Now, for him and Conley, they both were fine with that because at least they weren't out being. Okay, so to some of it was okay, we need you here as our witness, and we actually need you somewhat protected. Here's what's also fascinating about this time period, which is all these newspapers all the filings, the court, there's called a trial evidence of brief. It's a brief of evidence. It's all the transcripts from the trial, the appeals. It's all out there. So you can read all this stuff. You can read what took place, what the press were saying at the time, which is all very important. Once again, we're going back to the ADL and their accusations of anti-Semitism. There was none of this anti-Semitism. You go to the trial, they don't bring up the fact he's a Jew at all. The only racial or religious remarks were at one time, Leo Frank's mom yells out at the prosecutor, "You Gentile dog." Okay, so during court, yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
That's like a mask slip, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but with that, the comments about Jim Conley testifying, as a matter of fact, you can't trust an. You can't, it's just the most derogatory stuff. How could you, I mean, there were people even later on, in the 1930s, that were simply for testifying against a white person, a black person. It just didn't happen. Matter of fact, if this case wasn't taken over by the ADL as, some sort of revisionist history, you would probably look back at Jim Conley as one of these pioneers for black people who finally got to testify. 16 hours, and he withstood this, and he did quite an amazing job for who he was against, which were the top attorneys in the state of Atlanta and probably the nation at that time.
So, all right. So the testimony is in court. It's not by the cops.
So he tells the cops this, and then he has to come and testify to all this
For 16 hours in front of lawyers, in front of his top lawyers.
It was spanned over 3 days. Yeah. So he did quite good.
Is that normal for that to carry on for that long, like a testimony? That seems a little excessive.
4-week trial. I mean, it can go a ways. So what happens is you have direct examination of your witness. He gets up there and you do direct the state. And then the defense gets to cross-examine him. And then when they're done, you can do what's called recross. So you are redirect. So the state gets to now come and try to habilitate some of these, questions that were just asked and whatnot. And then you have recross. So, it can go back and forth a bit, and it kind of wanes its way down. You can only talk about what was just asked. But that was a long time, especially for a black who had never, blacks just weren't. Matter of fact, so I have several of these books. By the way, they're from the Nation of Islam, which was fascinating.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Hold them up. Let me see.
So this one is, let's see what we're going to get here. The secret.
The secret relationship between blacks and. Actually, the secret is that blacks are right. Isn't that shout out to the
and then
Black
this is volume
Israelites.
2. This one is all about the slave trade. They have volume 1, which is kind of how the slaves got
That's
here.
what I was kind of wondering. I'm like, at this point at all, like if and the KKK, back in 1913 are pretty racist against black people, and so they have no beef between one another. And I guess at no point had they asked the question, like, who owned these boats that brought these people here? Like, that hadn't come up yet at all. Because it's interesting to me that they were privy about what was happening in Germany.
It's funny.
Or became privy of it.
It's that meme. That's the Stone Toss meme where you're pulling on the rope, and then you look and you're like, wait, the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Huh, interesting. All right.
So, where were we at here?
Well, we were at, I guess, this point
16
where
hours of. I was asking about the 16
testimony.
hours.
The point is with all this, when you look back, there's no behavior at all. Matter of fact, in the closing arguments, the prosecutor talks about, because they brought it up in something right near the end about Leo Frank's, religion, and he's
how
just
great the Jews are. He's like, by the way,
the prosecutor Lee Dorsey literally says how great the Jews are. Yeah.
I thought I was just joking.
No, because they had no problems with this. It was. Yeah. It's not. It wasn't a thing, especially in the South. They were their kindred spirits.
So they're like trying to do a little bit of damage to him. They're like, yeah, we're prosecuting this guy. Like, yeah, he did it, but also like, they're great. Like, they're really crushing right now, and this isn't a thing at all. Just so we're clear.
Well, because Leo had brought that up. But on the other side, all they kept talking about was, look at this Jim Conley guy. Matter of fact, he said his name was James. This is what the closing arguments for his defense, Leo Rosser, his defense attorney said. He goes, when I asked him his name, he said James, not Jim. And suddenly he looks like, he's been fixed up and cleaned up, not the dirty that we all know he to be. So this is the kind of stuff that, it was the N-word about this guy was
So
constant.
if you're black, you're not even allowed to have a long form name.
No,
like
Right.
Jim can't be you don't have, it's not a nickname. Your
it's
name's
interesting.
Jim.
It's interesting to see as you're laying this out the willingness for, I guess, for the people, because look at where we're at now, but for them to kind of throw away this relationship that was clearly beneficial to them for one guy. And it's like, man, not many cultures are willing to do that. Like we'll throw whoever under the bus to maintain just a couple of dollars.
And that's weird though, because it does kind of speak to that like group mentality, but you still have those 5 prominent.
This is also pre-group mentality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have those 5 prominent within the jury that still threw him under the bus, and so it's weird. It's like
I guess you got a little bit of both.
you
right?
got a little bit of both.
But I'm
right?
just talking about modern day, like where we are now, how we ended up.
How did we get here?
It's a complete.
And once again, I always push back to understanding the times that they're in for this, because they took the testimony of a black man over a man at the time, a white guy. They didn't think it. Matter of fact, there's this guy Tom Watson. He's really he's a senator. He was a populist at the time. He becomes really famous after this case is over. He starts writing about it after the fact. And he talks about how, once again, we have no problems with the. Matter of fact, he doesn't like the Catholics, but this little girl was Catholic, and he's like, okay, but she's a girl, right? So, and he doesn't like the blacks. Yet you have to take into account this testimony. This was just, it belies all common sense what the ADL is trying to do. That the guy was so overwhelmingly guilty, everyone knew it at the time, that they took the words of a black man to convict him.
I love that though. Like it speaks to the race relations at the time, because it's like this guy is bothering to go out of his way and say like, look. Everybody knows I don't like the Catholics. All right, like the Catholics really suck. But this is a little girl. Like I love that you have to temper that, because in 2025 we would just go, hey, that's a child. Yeah. And that would be first and foremost. And we're like, first of all.
Well, I mean, in 2025, not really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So how does this? All right. So this dude is overwhelmingly guilty.
Yeah.
And they all decide.
They're throwing him under the bus and everything. Yeah. Like
so
this is guilty.
Everyone decides guilty. 5 members of the jury say guilty. Prominent members. What happens?
Well, let me correct that. It was the grand. So you had the coroner's inquest, then went to the grand jury. The grand jury had 5 on it that said yes, we should prosecute. No that I can tell were on the actual jury, but it was all white guys.
Okay.
It was all white guys. Now, what's fascinating? What takes place next? Okay, you had all these newspapers in Atlanta. One of them had just been recently bought by William Randolph Hearst. Okay, and his was kind of like People magazine of the day. They were just really kind of irresponsible, but most of them were pro Frank in a way, but they were also like, oh yeah, it looks like he's guilty. However, after the conviction, now you get prominent outside of the South taking this case on. So for the next 2 years. He was sentenced to death right away, but then he has all these appeals. So the appeals kept holding back being able to put him to death. So they kept prolonging that. You get the New York Times coming in. This guy named Adolph Ox. He was a Southern, moved up from Tennessee, buys the New York Times, and he starts deciding that Leo Frank issue is something that he needs to take on. Then you've got this guy Albert Lasker, who is the granddaddy of modern advertising, marketing. He pushes for Adolph Ox to take this on. They spend a ton of money. Oh, one thing to go back to. The pencil company hired 2 detective agencies to find who the real killer is.
What's the name of the pencil company?
Huh?
The name of
Ticonderoga.
Ticonderoga. Yeah, what's the name of it?
National Pencil Company, NPC. So
NPC. Oh, that's interesting.
Dude, I'm making a T-shirt though. That's gonna be
that's interesting.
Next T-shirt. It is interesting, right?
Yeah, there's a joke there somehow. I don't know how to get it, but yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot. We'll work on it.
These 2 detective agencies both determined that Leo's guilty. These are ones he had hired.
Oh my God!
So they testified at the court. What they had found. There was a lot of shenanigans and a lot of money that starts coming in after the trial. Matter of fact, all these people start to get a new trial. They're all of a sudden all these declarations and these testimonies that they are suddenly, they saw someone else. It was this and this and this. They bring all these declarations to court in a separate hearing, and the judge finds out that there's just all perjury. So one of these companies, the Burns company that had been one of the detectives agencies, the main guy from that ends up coming down there and just spreading hundreds of thousands of dollars. They average, I think in today's money, what got put in from his defense fund and people in the North and all this stuff, it was like 30 some million dollars in today's money. Wow. After the fact. Some of it was before with his attorneys as well. But anyway, you get these advertising coming down there. You get all the newspapers. New York Times starts writing so much about this that now you've got this additional movement. And this is what one of the guys wrote after the fact. This is pretty interesting. From the North, coming south to act as boss over 100 girls, may fall into a fatal mistake by forgetting that he is no longer in Boston, Philly, Chicago, or New York. When such a comes to Georgia, he is sure to run into trouble if he acts as though he believed he had a right to carnally use the persons of the girls who work for him. That was the mistake made by Leo Frank, and it cost him his life. And the mistake made by throughout the Union was that they made the Frank case a race issue. So you can see that there's this boiling point after the fact coming out there. The fact that the New York Times,
it touches everything. Right? Because it's like now you're talking about the Union and the Confederacy and the misnomer that the Confederacy was just outright racist. But it's like, here is just more proof
that was not the case.
Yeah, it's just not the case. I mean, man, great propaganda has been run.
And also the idea that he's explicitly saying, like, yeah, Boston and New York and everything, those are captured cities. Like, those are places where have a stranglehold and they can behave in ways like, assaulting and murdering a little girl.
Tyler, when this episode does air on YouTube, I don't even know how we're going to do it again, because...
You know what we should do? We should, you know how you can bleep out the word? We should replace it with a noise, and it should be like, I don't know, like...
like a chirp.
like the word, something like that. That's a dog whistle. We should dog whistle the show is what I'm saying. Like it says dreidel.
It's been
like
great.
Every time.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have to remove every time the word said, because it's like... What you're saying is just facts of a case, but it's extremely inflammatory because you're just not allowed to say it. Well, I'm not in Florida, at least at this point. Yeah. Be careful.
They've been pushing south for some time, huh?
That's why I said yesterday I'm going to be arrested after, or you guys might be. You're in Florida.
Well, you're in a bad place. You can get arrested. We're not.
No, we're worse.
Well,
we're
after the whole
figure.
DeSantis thing. Yeah.
Sorry, please continue, Tyler. Sorry about the interruption.
No, and by the way, if people are interested, there's so many little facts. If you're like, Tyler didn't lay out a case that Leo Frank was guilty. Yeah, I've just given you the overview, and the fact that this went to trial. It was a fair trial, but once again, after the fact is when all this crap starts to come into, and that the accusations, if you read from the ADL, and if you just go Leo Frank and put it in, it's just magazine after just it's tainted, and it's all about being anti-Semitic, cries of that's like one of these claims. There was yelled out there during the court. It wasn't. You go back, and that's what's fascinating about this book, actually, from the Nation of Islam. There's all these other books and accounts and claims. And they did exhaustive research going back with sources to show, one thing did or did not happen. There is so much out there. Like I said, all these newspapers are online. All these filings are online. None of the appeals that Leo Frank did until the last one to the Supreme Court did he ever mention any kind of mob mentality or he never mentioned, I was persecuted because I was that was never part of it. The last one he said, there was some mobs out there yelling after the fact. Okay, well that doesn't mean you didn't get a fair trial.
Does that sound like either he concocted it or somebody got in his ear and was like, we should turn this into an anti-Semitism thing?
A last resort sort of idea.
Yeah.
Right. Which really did get fired up with the, like I said, the New York Times and whatnot. So 1915, Leo Frank appeal up to the Supreme Court. It falls short. And then it goes to the governor decides he's going to take this under. He wants to take a look at this because he doesn't feel that everything maybe was right about it. Now, who's the governor? His name is Governor Slayton. He gets elected governor right about the time Leo Frank is going to trial. Okay, he's also an attorney. He's a member of a law firm with Leo Frank's attorneys. Okay, so he's in the law firm with them. Still name on the door this whole time. Can't practice as as the governor, but whatever. He also is trying to get on the Supreme Court, and a bunch of northern influences are saying you can do this, but it depends on kind of what happens with Leo Frank. He was also tried to get like $1.3 million in 1913, some sort of grant. It was also some shady stuff, all kind of tied to these same people who were big Frank supporters. This guy Schiff, Ox, the New York Times. So he does an inquest, and he decides to commute the sentence to life in prison from murder. And he's got a bunch of reasons why. He mentions in there, because at this point, the news is all over about anti-Semitism. He's like, there was nothing about anti-Semitism. It wasn't about that. He says some other things, kind of questionable, but he commutes his sentence to life in prison. And then not too long after that, that's when this group breaks into the prison, takes Leo Frank out, takes him all the way like an hour and a half to Marietta, where Mary Fagan was buried, and they him at that point. This governor basically gets run out of town because they don't like him. And then in the 1980s, the ADL pushes for a pardon. And the Georgia's always like, no, because one, he's dead. You can't pardon someone who is no longer alive. But then they give him a posthumous pardon in, I think, I'm trying to remember the year, 83
in
or
1980, they're trying to do this?
Yeah. And they
What's the
successfully
value
got...
in 1980?
What's that?
I said, what would be the value in 1980? Is this a reputational value, a perception?
They did a posthumous pardon. And if you look at the ADL when they posted, hey, look, he was pardoned. Well, he wasn't pardoned. They said, they quote, gave him a posthumous pardon, which is like after the fact, but not based on his guilt, but rather that he was killed and they failed to protect him in prison. So it's kind of just this mealy mouth
That's
stuff.
not even a pardon, really.
No, it's not. But, then
It's
they can
kinda
claim
crazy.
that.
How do you break someone out of prison? I mean, I don't know what the prison looked like in those days, but there has to be some level of compliance with the guards.
Unless
the
they
officers.
did some cool shit, like
They didn't do any Tom Cruise stuff.
Dynamite, dude. Dynamite was real popular back in the day.
Evidently, it was pretty, and this is where my conspiracy part, and we're going to get into the good stuff here now. Several books have written about this, about the precision that it was done. It's like 20 to 30 guys that did this. And one of these guys, Steve Oney, he's one of the big biographers or writers of this story. He says it reflected the raid in Entebbe. I don't know if you've heard about that. Entebbe was, it was in 1979, a plane from Israel gets hijacked. So in the 70s, I don't know how familiar you are with hijacking airplanes, but it happened a lot. You had
This is like the DB Cooper, yeah.
Right. Those kind of, and when you read about DB Cooper and you really dig into that and the history, people were just hijacking planes because they just wanted to go down to Cuba and take a vacation. And the planes were just like, fine, we're going to do it. But then this guy, DB Cooper, did some other stuff. However, this was Palestinians on the plane and some others, and they hijacked. It was all people coming from Israel, and they diverted the plane to Uganda. And they're at an airport there, and the IDF gets a group of 100, I think, individuals. They're special forces. They come in there and they it's a sneak attack, and they the hostage takers, and they free the hostages. One of the people of the IDF dies. It's a guy named Jonathan Netanyahu. You may have heard that name before. Oh. It's Benjamin's brother.
Really? I was gonna say. I thought you were gonna say no relation.
No, oh come on, it's
super relation.
Interesting.
As related as you can get.
Right. So the point is, they talk about this secret raid, and that's really interesting, right? That this raid was so specific and so organized. Now, what's fascinating is if you go back, we're going to talk about where the KKK comes into it. If you look now and you go, oh, how did Leo Frank, how was he killed? They're like, oh, it was this group called the Knights of Mary Fagan. They went in. They're the precursors to the second wave of the KKK. They come in, they capture, they do this, and they him. That's where the KKK comes about The second wave is simply because of the Leo Frank anti-Semitism. Remember, we talked about that. It's important to tie those two together so that you have the evils. Matter of fact, one of these writers that we're going to talk about here in a second, he's saying what happened to Mary Fagan was bad, but what happened to Leo Frank was worse. Okay, that's pretty strong things to say. But when you tie it to these emotional, outrageous, concept or actions, then you get a dual. It's the on October 7. That's much worse. Now suddenly we can go gangbusters because of that.
So when you tie like the idea of like breaking a dude out of jail with 30 men in an organized fashion, lynching him and all this other stuff, like this makes it worse, or at least they can say that they have some sort of
justification for what comes next.
So is that what makes it worse, perceivably worse in this guy's eyes?
Well, I guess, right? Well, that he had to go through this, right? That it's because he was an innocent man, and therefore,
Frank.
Yeah.
Listen, an hour and a half drive or whatever to a location for like where you're sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it wasn't
must
great.
Be torture.
But burying a rope in a little girl's neck,
not great either.
Not a great move either.
Now,
yeah.
Evidently, that there was testimony about did he say anything on the drive, and they said he didn't say a word. The only thing he said was give my ring to my wife, and they did. So they're upstanding lynchers.
That sounds nice. I mean, yeah. All right. So what's he complaining about? Or what is this guy complaining about?
So this Knights of Mary Fagan is interesting, right? Because now you've got the KKK started because of Leo Frank, right? Now or whomever, if you believe in this, you get to tie this evil aspect to this lynching that's now perpetuated out, and all the deaths that came about from this really started because they hated so much.
Man, I mean, they really are masters at weaving like this complex victim narrative.
Are you trying to make the point that maybe it was actually like a kind of a double crossing, like did this
to
but let him
well,
cook.
they turned Leo Frank into a lampshade after they
so they say. But what are you saying here, Tyler?
So let me get this. How did this Knights of Mary Fagan? Because you're spoiling my story here. But yes, it's so obvious in my conspiracies that I have
Top
to go
just has a
this
nose
is the show.
for the
This
nose.
is a conspiracy show, dog.
Yeah,
this is what we do.
Yeah, but just to be clear, now the KKK is associated with pretty much hating everybody, including. This is the first time that those things became associated with the KKK hatred.
No. Wait. What do you mean? When was the first time that the KKK were at odds?
Well, because clearly they weren't at odds previously, but now it's like if you ask people like, oh, who did the KKK hate? Obviously, first and foremost, black people.
This offshoot seemed like it's more focused on and they're like also blacks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
now,
like primarily.
I mean, here's just an example. You go through the 20s. There's all kind. B'nai B'rith felt cozy enough with the Klan to invite them to their meetings. The lawyer for the KKK handled legal issues for the Klan. I mean, a lawyer. A Dies Committee of U.S. in Congress in 1938 under a New York Congressman, Samuel Dickstein. That's a great name.
Dickstein?
Yeah. They did a study as to whether the Klan was a problem, and they concluded no need to examine their activities. In 1941, the ADL and the B'nai B'rith Klan actually, what did they do here? They did a study of themselves and decided that to see if the activities were illegal. They said it's really not a problem. So my point is, all the way up through the 1940s, there was cozy behavior between these two. There wasn't a problem. Like I said, when the communism stuff really came into in the 50s, 60s, that's when the KKK, kind of what you would call their third wave. That's when this more common knowledge of how you perceive the KKK and the community.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
And I wanted to emphasize that because none of this was a problem at the time, right? So, but let's go back here. I had, let me see if I can find where it is. This is the Knights of Mary Fagan issue and how it actually came about. So, on June 26 in 1915, now he's in August 17 of the same year, so just a few months before, the New York Times ran an article, and this is what they said about future assassins. One of the strangest of these meetings is reported to have been held in Marietta, where Mary Fagan is buried. 150 citizens are said to have met at Mary Fagan's grave and formed an oath-bound organization to avenge her death. This body is known to be known as the Knights of Mary Fagan, and it is the purpose of the organizers to form lodges over Georgia, the members being pledged never to rest until the murder of the little girl has been avenged. There seems to be little doubt that such a body has been formed. Now, this is the New York Times saying this in 1915, before his death. Nothing was sourced as to what this is. And remember, all these journals in Atlanta, the dailies that even the Marietta, they had a weekly magazine. No one ever mentions this group forming. Also remember, it's not like the KKK now where you're like, maybe I don't want to be known that I'm in there if it's even existing.
Right.
These guys were like,
you were cool.
Yeah, out and about and proud. And now the KKK hadn't formed, the second part hadn't formed yet. But
who owned the New York Times at this time?
Yeah.
Adolf Ox, I'm sorry, which was this guy, okay?
Right.
So they're promoting this future assassins and this Knights of Mary Fagan. This is the first time it's mentioned anywhere, but none of these newspapers even mention that there's this gathering. And by the way, this was so anti-Frank now sentiment throughout. They were glad that this guy was, strung, or he should be put to death, that they would have been proud of this. There's this other guy, Tom Watson. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He comes and starts doing a bunch of writing, and all of his writing is once again after the fact. And he breaks down the trial. He breaks down a bunch of this other stuff, and he was very prominent. People point back to his anti-Semitism, which he didn't have any at the time, as to why there was anti-Semitism during the trial. But he didn't even perform any commentary during the trial. So anyway, that's just one thing. Now, a few weeks later, on July 22, so not quite a month, this other magazine in the North called the American Israelite, they then published this. Now, the American Israelite, who owns it? Okay, Adolf Ox owns the New York Times, okay? He's married to his wife is Effie Wise. Her dad, his brother, owns the American Israelite. So it's within the family that these two magazines are point. They write, 2 weeks ago, the Israelites stated with confidence that the attempt to revive the Ku Klux Klan in Georgia did not meet with any notable success. But the confidence was not well placed. For all accounts, some such outlaw organization having for its purpose the lynching of Frank has been established. This information comes from Atlanta by way of special dispatch to the New York Times, and it's trustworthy, where the Associated Press dispatch could not be accepted because of the representatives of the later have been under the same intimidating influences which were evident from the moment Frank was charged with the murder of Mary Fagan. Okay, so they reference that this group is now part of the KKK, right? And they tie it into their sources, the New York Times. There was nothing ever written about this Knights of Mary Fagan ever anywhere else until you had 1965, okay? Does
this have January 6 vibes to you a little bit? Like,
yeah,
they're saying they're going to do a thing, and then lo and behold, the thing is done, and then there's extreme consequences.
They go, they're going to do a thing, and then other people go, we should show up to that thing they're going to do. These people sound based.
I mean, there's probably a mix of that as well, right? So, continue. So, interesting.
By the way, the KKK, if you look at them, they do say they were formed around this time. They go up to this guy named William Simmons, takes them up to Stone Mountain in Georgia, and they have this ritual, whatever, and they start the KKK. He wrote
what kind
books.
of ritual?
I don't know. Hand jobs, those kind of things.
Okay. Well, I mean, we know that's what happens at rituals.
No,
because I'm saying, like, what kind of?
It is interesting when you get into like some ritualistic aspects that could actually point directly to who is spearheading this stuff. Like,
the Masonic, influences, the influences in the KKK. There's a lot of the secret societies. Just the overlaps are incredible.
Yeah.
He writes books. He writes everything. He never says Knights of Mary Fagan, this Leo Frank lynching. He never ties them. And these people were, by the way, when they did the lynching, they were out and proud. There's a picture of them, and they're kind of like, here I am. So they're not, trying to be super secretive. However, in 1965, this guy, Harry Golden, he's the publisher of a southern newspaper, the Caroline Israelite. He writes a book, Little Girl is Dead, and he refers to an article by this guy, Tom Watson, that we mentioned in the Jeffersonian. And this is what he says. He goes, The Knights of Mary Fagan first appeared in the Jeffersonian in an issue in June 24, 1915, the issue that condemned Slayton's commutation. That's the good governor. Tom Watson in each issue thereafter professed to see the great invisible power of these knights. Now, all Tom Watson's articles are up. You can read them. He never, ever once mentions anything like the Knights of Mary Fagan. He mentions Cobb County vigilantes. He mentions vigilantes, but he never mentions any of this. So now this guy just makes up something. And in his notes, he had another date of an article that might have been this Tom Watson's, but you can't trace it back. So this guy just made it up. And he said, oh, when someone asked him about it later, he goes, I talked to someone and they said that their friend had been there. And anyway, so there you go. It kind of puts that out there. 1968, this other guy Leonard Dinnerstein writes a book, and he says, he mentioned it in there as well. And then this other guy in 2003 also mentions the Knights, but they all refer back to this Harry Golden who made up the quote that you can't refer to Mr. Watson.
It's like, yeah, I mean, you see this a lot in journalism, this circular lying that doesn't have a start or an end. I mean, that's also an esoteric kind of thing, like the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah. Or like the labyrinth. Right.
Yeah.
It's not
actually something that we've come across very interesting.
But it's a perfect mode of obfuscations. It sounds official and you can kind of talk to other people who will correlate it. But if you really like got them all into the same room and said like, where did this thing begin? They would all just point in a circle at each other. But
this is the MO, and this is why it's so significant. The idea of the labyrinth, the city of Jericho, the spiral that is the FBI logo for. It is this age-old technique of having somebody go into this thing, and then once you're like halfway into your labyrinth spiral trap, then the gates close and you're attacked and there's no way out. Yeah. And you even see this in Catholic churches, like they have symbology of this on the ground, but the circular logic of doing this within journalism is just right up the alley of the playbook that's consistently used.
That's like, remember when we talked to John, damn, I forgot what his last name is, John something with a B, but he was talking about like this idea of the Library of Alexandria. And he's like, no matter how far back you go,
John Laban,
yeah. The more you go back and you know get to the original text, the original texts about the Library of Alexandria all reference a text that nobody
something else.
It references itself, like they reference each other, and they all reference one source text that like doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And it's like that is really interesting. It's kind of the same thing.
Absolutely, and so. This was an interesting quote I took out of one of the books here, which is, it goes, several books and articles rely on Dinnerstein's authority to locate the phantom group at the very root of the KKK. This extraordinary reinterpretation that removes blacks as the prime target of racial terrorism and replaces them with people is no minor feat, and it gives the KKK an entirely new raison d'etre, reason for being. And that, to me, is kind of the seminal. Why is this story so interesting? And it's because of this change of character of what actually took place, even though you can go back and do it. And then there's all these, fake quotes and, references to this Knights of Mary Fagan, which once again, this goes back to what I was saying. Now the KKK is about, lynching an innocent man rather than all the deaths that occurred to the black people.
They took a thing like so that the KKK goes away and then they do a ritual. They resurrect the KKK. It becomes their golem or like their scapegoat, their monster, their Frankenstein's monster that they can continually. It's not real. They control it. They create all the boogeyman stories surrounding it. They talk about its comings and goings and its missions and the things that it hopes to achieve. And then they point to it and they say, look at this thing that's victimizing us, the people.
It's also funny. Like, I don't know much about the structure of the KKK, but I do know that like one of the head positions is like Grand
Wizard. Yeah. Oh, Grand Dragon. That's fascinating.
And it's just like more like weird satanic symbology. And then you get into like more esoteric. It's all the same stuff, dude. It's wild.
It's like Frankenstein's monster. If Dr. Frankenstein set out to have his own monster attack him so that he can claim victimhood.
Yeah. Anyway, it's so let's talk about, because we're going to get to some nitty gritty here. You guys still doing good on time? I think we're good, right?
Oh yeah, we're good.
Okay. What was the commutation of Leo Frank was problematic. Okay. And the reason being is because they had now taken this guy, Leo Frank, to be this, mythical figure that the reality was he was a pathetic, unappealing sexual strangler. Okay, that was the reality. And with this commutation, a possible new trial might even happen. You've got problems, which is he's not going to be put to death, and he's going to start talking. And he does start talking. And his attorney was not happy about this. He's given some interviews. He was he was not a person that you would have any sympathy for the more you got to know him.
He's kind of an idiot, right? Like he's offering this dude $300 and then he goes like, actually, I'm going to hold on to the $300, right? Like he's not smart.
So there are special interests that have been paying for him throughout this case that they are now worried he's going to start spilling beans.
Because if you want to build a victimhood case off of this guy, you can't have him be a moron.
Also, there's another wrinkle here where the mayor, who does have relations to Leo Frank's lawyer, is it possible that it's like it's almost like a weird setup ritual where they know he's going to be anyway? They're like, if we do this, he's going to be like, do you think that there would have been like an easier like roll off if he was just killed by the state and then this was over there?
I think, yes, I think as a matter of fact, let me go to what these Lasker and Ox, the two big money men and influence propaganda from this whole thing, what they actually said about him. This is Lasker, the advertiser. He said, "It was very hard for us to be fair to Frank. He impressed us as a sexual pervert. Now, he may not have been, or rather, or something like that." His biographer said of this, taking notes about during that time, a violent dislike to Frank. Lasker hated him. He said, "I hope Frank gets out, and when he gets out, I hope he slips on a banana peel and breaks his neck." The Sears and Roebuck guy, he gave him money. He was disgusted with him and wrote so in private conversation because he didn't like the thank you note he sent him or something. Another guy about Adolph Ox said, "I'm sure it was a relief to Mr. Ox to have Frank and out of the way. I felt for some time he secretly despised Frank." So these were guys that were pumping money into it for a cause. This mythical and everything that goes on with that. And then now he perhaps is going to be released after 2 years of being known with him. So now he does get, after he's the American Israelite actually pushes to not have a reward for who so all these different, the New York Times, all these different influential, they didn't want to, they said we don't know who it is, we're fine, we don't need to find out. That's a little odd. Matter of fact, they said it was Tom Watson, the guy that this was writing, he's the reason they did it, because he incited violence. With that in mind, it brings, I don't know how much you know about law. Let's do some quizzing in here. Have you heard of Din Rodef and Din Moser?
No. Is this from the Talmud or the?
Yes. Okay. It's called the law of the pursuer and the law of the informer. Okay. It's a justified extrajudicial killing. If someone is going to do harm against you can kill the pursuer. So a simple situation is someone's running away from someone else. You can actually, the pursuer. Now, you know how we are with legalities and the Talmud and all the interpretations that can go into all kinds of different avenues. It's not just that kind of thing, right? Din Moser is the law of the informer, like a snitch. Okay, so if you are informing on another to people, you can be put down as well, an extrajudicial killing that's justified to do this. Now, you combine the two. This is what's fascinating. The severe punishment stems from the belief that the Moser, that's the snitch, places a fellow in mortal danger, thereby taking the status of the Rodef, that's the pursuer, and a pursuer with murderous intent, which permits anyone to stop them by any means necessary, including lethal force. Now, Yitzhak Rabin, is that his name? What's his name here? Yitzhak Rabin, yeah. In 1995, he was a Moser. Some Sanhedrin rabbis put one out on him, and he was assassinated. So because he had been giving land or promised to give land to the Palestinians. So they're under this concept, if you're doing something to harm us. Now, so that's the idea here, which is Leo Frank was now no longer this sympathetic person. And he was going to, if he had another trial, he was going to do harm to the at this point going forward. If he was able to be out there, maybe he has a new trial. The new trial wouldn't have gone any better. It would have gone probably much worse.
This was ultimately the crime of Jesus, what you're describing. It's like irreparable harm to other and what they were proliferating with their, I guess, their religion, religiosity. So it's like, this is not, it's not unprecedented behavior for this kind of religion to do this stuff. Very interesting, man.
Yeah. So the idea would be, well, we say it's going, let's set this up, right? Which is, it's going to be this Knights of Mary Fagan. So we at least have some, excuse or some, it's not us, but then we're going to put him down. I mean, who knows what the real situation, it was much more advantageous for this to happen than for him to sit in prison and talk. That's for sure.
And very Epstein-like as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you gotta. I mean, there's no shortage of people who, if you leave them there long enough, they're gonna squeal. Makes you wonder why Ghislaine is still kicking. But yeah, I mean, very Epstein-like.
He just just said that the New York Times didn't. They ran articles saying that we don't really need to know who was in charge of the mob that him. Like, we're not sure, so just let it go. That kind of stuff. So it's like, there's a lot of glowy stuff.
And so that would be like, what would be the benefit of that is that if you ever brought anybody to trial for that, they would be like, they'd have something pretty unique to say about it.
Right.
That wouldn't go with your narrative. So yeah, we don't really need them.
I mean, that directive, I don't know that it falls under that, but the thing on October 7th where you're going to just your own so that they're not captured. Some weird justifications for, doing some immoral actions, I think.
Yeah. So this ends up becoming somehow the kindling or the tinderbox that bursts into the flames that is the ADL and what we're subjected to today.
Yeah, so like I said, the ADL came out of this secret Bernard Brith society that he was the one in Atlanta that he was actually the president of, and it around 1914, 1915, it spawned out of all this, and their whole idea, which is fascinating and funny, which is to fight racial injustice. Yeah. Which you look at the Leo Frank case, and it's just like, come on. I mean, the fact is that he was a black guy got the better of it. If you read too about the feelings of Frank and the other people at the time, there's no way a black man should ever be taken seriously over me. That was a lot of people in the South, but especially not when he was specific about that. So the fact that happens is just ADL comes about. They're going to fight racism, but this whole thing spawned from them being the most racist people out there.
It's a classic case of inversionism, which is shows its ugly face all too often. But this model, is this I guess one of the earliest times where they realized feigning victimhood on a political cultural level and also I guess a legal level, right? Yeah, could be pretty advantageous. And so it's a simple model. It's not very complex. And here we are, the modern.
I don't think that this is it's a newer model. I think it's a playbook.
Well, I mean, we hadn't
used a lot.
Yeah, but by that time, I don't think it was used a lot.
Yeah,
you think so?
I think so.
Oh, by that time, how many countries had they been kicked out of?
It's not necessarily about how many countries, but the days of Babylon, the days of Egypt, a lot of this stuff.
Well, I'm just saying
rhymes.
Now we have this, and I guess maybe you're right. I don't know what the cultural climate would have looked like back then.
Well, we just read through some of the Talmud, some of the laws that
nice.
They would use to justify. You wouldn't create these laws unless you were doing something strange like this. So this stuff is, the Talmud is written and formulated by 500 AD, but it's also being the Sanhedrin and Rabbi, what's his name? Rabbi Shmelin. I forget this guy's name, but this is around the time of Jesus that they're developing this.
Yeah.
This argumentation. And I think it even predates that. I think that line of argumentation is going pre-Jesus, which is why.
I wonder what it is then, because I think you're probably right in that it's a pretty compelling argument for this has been the MO the entire time, but something about existing in our day and era where we have social media and we have this what would you call it? It's like a
Rolodex of history.
A Rolodex of history. Yeah. We also have a Rolodex of modern times. We have all these articles coming out. We can see it playing out all at once. What we've gotten is a bird's eye view of this cultural, political situation and how they're involved in it. And with that bird's eye view, we can go, whoa, 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 whoa. Like we can finally lift our heads up and see the patterns.
It's almost why like I'm tired of talking about it. Right.
Yeah,
like,
right,
I mean,
in some ways. Yeah.
Tyler's you've been here since the beginning, or like sort of the beginning when I'm like, we're beating this to death. And now it's like everyone's talking about it again. We have another case that's out there about this latest that is actually censoring X somehow. He's got influence on Twitter on what can be said there, and then it turns out he's got to be flown back to Israel, and now that's a big deal.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm just so tired of because like I feel like the more we point at it, it's just like I look like an asshole for being like, hey, look at that again.
Yeah, but then when you listen to an hour and a half of Tyler tell us how they leverage this situation
with the same tricks,
and it's like, geez, man, this is like, it feels like all the energy in that moment and you know what they did with the resurrection of the KKK and everything is like, I don't know, it's the apex of this rendition here in the West. Like the real what is it was like I forget what the expression is.
Watershed moment.
Yeah, that like leads to this big beast that we have, which is like, yeah, sure, it happens historically on repeat, but this is the one that the West is being subjected to right now.
Well, I think it happens historically, but there's a life cycle for it.
Yeah, it seems like after some time they like get kicked out. Yeah.
Tyler's laughing.
Well, you talk about fatigue, and I get all that. And my wife the other night, because I was talking about this shit, and she's just like, why do you care about this? And I'm like, well, because they're feigning this victimhood. They create a situation, and then they defend a guy, and then they try to be victims on it. And she's like, well, and I go, are you for? Yeah, and so trying to get my sympathy there, and I go, and she goes, do you not believe in the? We don't need to go there. But I go, well, okay, so blacks were enslaved. Should we still be talking about that over and over? Because that was pretty horrific. Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. So it's not to minimize all these other aspects, but why is this one such a big deal? One, it took the nation at the time, and the New York Times is just writing about and it's the propaganda that took place so unnecessarily so. And sometimes when you see these kind of people like him, there's all kinds of cases that you can imagine out there, and the propaganda that just gets pushed from it. You're just like, I'm sorry, I want to push back. I don't care if it's black, whatever. This is a disgusting thing, but they are making this a thing now. I mean, it was never, and they've created that, and that's a little sick to me.
People talk about the government and whether or not like the internet got away from them, right? And what's a better question is like how the internet applies to the. It's like if they really have been using this playbook over and over again, and they got like, the New York Times involved, they've got this massive propaganda machine that's on their side, and they're running this narrative over and over again. They have this influence in the ADL and all this crap. And then all of a sudden the internet comes along. Like, I wonder if like, just historically speaking, the internet is the arrow in the knee of the, or at least not all the, but the that seek to adhere to this like Talmudic subversion over and over again on a loop.
The problem is like, the adherence to this, like the cultural fabric of it, which we spoke about at the beginning of the show, where it's like, it doesn't really matter what it is, they kind of collectivize. So it's like, what do you like? What's again?
Well, you can collectivize, but it's all of it is cloak and dagger, right? All of it is a lot of it is predicated on the average person's inability to gain access to historical context in any kind of meaningful way, because they don't back in the day they couldn't even read. And then if they could read, it's like, can you go ahead, gather the text? And then in between being a 13-year-old who's slaving away in the mines, go ahead and go back and read the text and try to understand the patterns and all this. And even if you can read it, can you see the patterns? But now there's this, the dam is about to break. There's so many people who have access to this. And there's all these people, especially here on X or Twitter, that are kind of acting as like shepherds, where you can look to like a Jake Shields, let's say. And I'm not saying like Jake Shields is this great intellectual mind who's noticing all these patterns throughout history, but he's influential enough to go, there is some patterns. Y'all seeing these patterns? And then you got a guy like, let's say, Stu Peters, who's like,
Okay, here's a question that I will pose to you, the viewer, Tyler and David. just as Tyler said, what he suspects happened with the New York Times, kind of possibly orchestrating. I mean, from this guy's release or from his exoneration, or what's the correct word for that? Yeah, from his commutation to the lynching to the non-interest in who did it.
The idea that they're orchestrating this very sentiment.
It's almost like, like this is a playbook and we're orchestrating this again in order to garner a certain reaction. And this is where I'm at constantly. Whenever I log into Twitter, I'm just like, what do you want me to think today? You know, like a couple of people, black people
I see
doing
where you're
stuff.
going with
you know
it.
what I mean?
Well, okay, so I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think you're correct. I think they probably looked at the internet, maybe things like Twitter, and said, ooh, the most effective version of this machine that we've ever wanted. But I do think now Frankenstein's monster actually applies to the conversation, where they have this thing, but it's getting out of their hands. They've created something disastrous and disgusting, but I do think it's going to turn around and bite them in the ass. I think it's currently, because you know what it is? It's like you can do the victimhood thing and you can go, woe is us, but I don't think you've ever been able to pull that off while the people you were trying to subject to that illusion actually had cultural context, actually saw the patterns from a bird's eye view. So I don't know what that does. That can't be good for their system, their plan that they seem to hatch every so many years. And
I don't know. Where do you see it going, and where do you see the cultural significance of this case in today's world?
I don't know. Cultural or significance now. What's interesting is like the ADL, they post something on Twitter and they got community noted. Okay. So I just think it's too pervasive at this point. I'm just doing my little part to try to push back against it. I would hate to do any predictions. You talk about Jake Shields, he went hard against the ADL, and now they're putting up, America First is anti-Semitic. It's crazy. I would like to see maybe all this crumble at some point. What's interesting too, when I dug into this, and you can look through the ADL and you look through like their examples of anti-Semitism. This is the most fascinating one I found, which is this high school girl. She's not at school that day. It's because someone's like, oh, let's see some cases of anti-Semitism. So like, how about this one? And it's girls at school. She's not at school that day, but her friend, she's in high school, sends her a picture because someone drew a swastika on the chalkboard. So obviously this is a huge deal. And then she, it's a press release. It's, the school's doing mea culpas. It's all, and it's like some kid put chalk marks up there. This is what they're working for now.
Yeah.
But they've got to all hinge it off of
Yeah, it's like when I went to a restaurant one time with my wife, and I got drunk, and I looked over and I saw that the back kitchen had a dry erase board, and I saw that like there was nobody by the dry erase board, so I had a few drinks. I had it was a lot of and I went back there and I drew a very intricate dick on their dry erase board. It was big.
I thought you were going to say the swastika.
No, not a swastika, but I mean, like, it's done in the same spirit of that. It's children, right? It's the same shit as like I walked into this dude's garage and the pull down for his garage door looked like a noose, and it's like, no, that's not what's going on there.
Something super interesting for you to think about, Tyler, is the symbolism of all this stuff. And the Nazi symbol, it's like a Vedic, an old Indian Vedic symbol.
I think it's the procession of the Big Dipper
right
throughout the equinoxes.
It's supposed to be like, it's showing you that there is movement, that this thing is spinning in a spiral-like motion. And then you look at, again, all the symbology around it. I'm looking at this swastika that is spinning in this spiral-like motion, and you're looking at the symbol, and you're looking at these labyrinths, and I'm like, it's all the same thing. But like, it's almost like they have to tell you that, this is working hand in hand. This is the same thing that we've been doing for ages, but we have rebranded it in a way. So now you pick bad guy, good guy, and go for it.
Well, here's what's fascinating to me, which is, O.J. Simpson gets arrested, right? Killed his wife, and I'm pretty sure he did. I'm not taking any conspiracy on that one. My dad was such a O.J. Simpson fan that he would not he was on the other. He was for OJ during this whole trial. He was fascinated. Now he's like, okay, yeah, he did it. But that's his why, because OJ played for the 49ers and he's a big Niners fan. It's like taking your team, and you see this all the time, mega or whatever it is. You take your group mentality and you go with it. That is very strong with the community, and so you've got this guy. You can't have him pilloried. They defended him, and then they're all these comments about how he was they hated him. They were glad he was dead. That is strong, and I get that. And but at some point you have to be like those 5 on the grand jury and say, yeah, he's part of our community, but he also just did some really big harm. So that's
what we're missing here. It's just like, but good luck. Good luck with that.
I wonder because it seems like you would push for this level of execution in this operation to achieve something, and there are those who are like, look, they got Israel, right? Like that came out of the whole World War II situation. I wonder what they would get this time.
The entire what will they get? The Messiah. I don't listen to him. That gets into crazy biblical prophecy, but
it's just a thought. It's just where I'm going, because it's just like it does feel like we're coming to a real boiling point, and this historical context is important and it's needed, and it does another one of those things where you kind of the pattern emerges and you see it, and it just makes you go like, well, where is this all going? If this really is this big machine that operates cyclically, where is it? Where is it going to end up? But listen, Tyler, we're at the hour and a half mark, so it's time to bring it in for a landing. Thank you for reigniting our disdain for the. That's not true. I don't. It's just like we tried for a while to back away a little bit, and we're right back in it. But I want to ask you one last question.
It's like some people that we know in real life. They're like, you guys like really hate the Jew, and I'm just like, no, I don't. But like when you're hearing this stuff, you're just like, oh God, guys, get it? What the hell?
I don't even hate the Jew. I hate the ADL, and I hate some of this.
Yeah,
that's fair.
You have Shapiro and Clavin. I think is that his name? That pushed out a tweet the other day about Leo Frank innocent, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get to judge you on how you believe this case. You've obviously never read it. You just read the propaganda. Fine, then that's how I'm going to think of you on everything. Anyway, go ahead, David.
Yeah. What's funny? I didn't actually ask this. I think who was the last episode we did? Was Kingdom in Context? I didn't ask this question because I was like, we've been talking a lot. It was a long time. It was a long episode. But I ask it to you, Tyler. Are you having fun?
In general or on this show?
Just
you piece of shit.
I mean, what you're he's like, because this show sucks ass. Typically, I'm doing great, but right now, no. I mean, like, you do your own show and you're doing all this research and you're involved, especially in this, this conversation that's taking place on Twitter. You're seeing all dialogue taking place, the same kind of concerns that we're seeing.
Yeah, you're like a player. You are in some way a player in this weird part of like all the stuff that's been happening for the last 6-7 years. You've been in there moving pieces around. Are you having fun though?
I am, and the reason is, and I think it's like you guys have kids and family. This isn't the be all end all. I don't just listen to this and do all this all the time.
I'm sorry, they nailed you in the chat. Lawyer answer.
Mm-hmm.
The worst.
yeah, I'm having fun. No, I am having fun, but I have different things that I get interested in, like. Tomorrow, Saturday, the Tour of Spain starts. I'm going to be 3 weeks watching bike racing. So
the bike dude.
And by the way, Cole's getting on bikes now. That's a little disturbing.
My
point isn't about necessarily those things. It's just about doing other things, right? And eliminating this can't be in your mind all the time. You have to go hang out with your kids. You have to diddle your wife and all the, you're banging your finger blasting your wife and you're thinking about Leo Frank. You can't be doing that.
I can't believe that used to be a form of punishment, fingering you for whatever. That's crazy. By the way, the only reason that Cole's getting involved with bikes is because of the shorts.
Yeah. He's learned that he can wear Spanx and show off his whatever.
That's it.
That's actually I like that advice or the frame of mind, that perspective that you bring, because it's like when I leave this like weird little studio and I log off Twitter, it's like, it's just, we're doing other stuff, but I'm having fun. I'm having a blast.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're having fun.
And I'm glad you guys are having a good time. And I'll come back and see you again in Florida next time you do Bro Grove.
You're not invited.
That's true.
Okay.
But we are doing Bro Grove soon.
I want to say one more thing about this case, which is interesting, which is they talk about this anti-Semitism. The movie comes out in 1915. It was based off the book, The Klansman, Birth of a Nation. don't know if you ever heard about it. It's
I've
kind
heard
of
of Birth of a Nation, never seen it,
it's-
but I hear it's controversial.
It's controversial, but at the time it wasn't. It was a huge blockbuster, like one of the first motion action films. It was about the Klan, the original first wave of the Klan, and it was huge. The guy, a mayor of MGM, got his MGM to start MGM money from producing and helping this film. So, which he's made a ton of money off of this in the South on the theaters. My point is, this movie comes out. It's all about the Klan. It's the second wave of the Klan that starts from this. That is really a seminal thing that happened. It gets shown in the White House too. Wilson screens it there. It was popular everywhere. They tried to boycott it a little bit in New York. The point is, this is the time period that we're talking about. And the ADL wants you to think that the KKK was so that it came and this guy, yet they are promoting the KKK outright in public culture. So
It's the birth of a nation, but the version that they want. The version of a nation that they want.
That's so nefarious.
They do that. That's the cultural manufacturing through the media, all right. You know what, man? I love the...
We don't want any problems.
I love the...
no problems there. I'm having fun.
That's
Good. I'm glad you're having fun.
Oh,
I'm having
God.
fun too.
That's horrible, man.
That
Now
is
I'm gonna-
wild. That's an unfortunate, disturbing cherry to drop on top of.
He's
this
like, by the
conversation.
way, it's all controlled again.
Here's a great way to summarize this. Remember Birth of a Nation? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're back. Okay, yeah.
We're like, you know what, dude? We're leaving. How about that?
Man, Tyler, thank you for dropping knowledge on us again, man.
Yeah, anytime.
we got to have you back. Maybe just to shoot this is a Christian show.
Shoot the dialogue.
Shoot the.
Oh my God! We gotta have you back to shoot the. Wow.
Oh no! But all right, guys. Until another 30 minutes or so, and we'll be back. This has been Nephilim Death Squad. Don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you later.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. You can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see. You know.